Hit record here and start sharing my screen again, and here we go. So once again, thank you again for joining us for day 5 of SEO Week. Once again, I'm Swain, joined once again by Christy, and looking forward to sharing this information with everybody, and thank you to everybody for joining us, taking the time out of your busy weeks to be with us during SEO Week. Today we are, of course, covering content. Backed by popular demand, we'll be covering lots of things related to content, and we actually wound social media into this as well. So a lot of great things to click through here and go through. So just a little bit of a background about Ned Elixir. We were founded in 2005 with the sole mission of helping digital marketers succeed online. We currently have offices in Princeton, which is where I am sitting today. I hope it is as beautiful everywhere today as it is in Princeton. But we also have offices in London and Hyderabad, India as well. All told, we are over 85 fanatically analytical search marketers with an aggregated 5.5 million hours of hands-on retail search marketing experience. We apply all of the learnings that we've had in the hundreds of accounts that we've had the privilege of working with. We boil that down into several different areas of knowledge sharing and expertise that we apply to our clients to help them succeed online. We do this through a number of different channels. Of course, search engine optimization, which is the crux and the center point of what we're talking about this week, but also paid search optimization, as well as social media optimization as well. So being where your potential customers are, learning more about them, and then getting your brand in front of them when they're looking for it. We also do all of this through a core of very strong technology suites, including Elixir, as well as Elixir SEO, which has its own proprietary algorithms to grade websites and determine what needs to be done to perform better from an organic perspective. And Elixir Marketplace is actually a free suite of tools designed for small businesses that want to get more insight on their website. So that is just a great wealth of information that you can grab there. That is elixirmarketplace.com. You can find lots of great information there. And a little bit about Ned Elixir University. Ned Elixir University was founded in 2012 with the idea of democratizing the digital marketing industry through exceptional knowledge and expertise sharing. Our goal is to share these best practices that we've learned in the retail and digital marketing space with over 10,000 businesses worldwide. If you're interested in learning more about Ned Elixir University, we encourage you to join up with us at LinkedIn in the groups. Just do a search for Ned Elixir University, join up there, and you'll have access to all of that great content, and we look forward to seeing you there. And just a little bit of a background on why we started SEO Week last year and why we wanted to make sure we were continuing it through this year. It's a competitive space out there, and Google is changing at an increasingly rapid pace. So SEO, as we know, is not about fooling Google. It's about doing the right things to make sure that your website appears in Google for the long run. So we want to share tips and tricks. Actually, tricks would be a bad word to use. We wanted to share tips and strategies with you that are going to help you for the long run stay on the good side of Google and continue to grow your business overall. The overall theme, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. That's really the core of what we wanted to go with as far as making sure that everybody learns how to set up their websites for organic success for the long run. And of course, as we know, today is the final day of SEO Week, where we're going to be covering content and social media. All the recordings of the previous days are available at the Ned Elixir website on our blog. I'm joined today by Christy LaBarba. She is one of our SEO managers here at Ned Elixir. She brings with her 8 years of digital marketing and SEO experience. You can also find more out about her on the MTV reality show that she was a part of, and she absolutely hates that I bring this up every day. And I am, of course, Swain, the head of SEO here at Ned Elixir. And I just absolutely love the privilege to talk to everybody about SEO today. So without any further ado, getting to the rules of SEO Week, what we encourage everybody to do is ask lots and lots of questions. We want you to try and stump us. Any unanswered questions will be covered in a blog post early next week, so you will be able to see the answers to those grinding questions that you may have. And it'll be there for the time being up until the future. We also encourage everybody to utilize any screenshots that you might be able to do. Grab this information and apply it to your business, and you will grow your business over time. Share the information as well utilizing hashtag SEO Week, and share any information, and it'll be great for you to keep that in your Twitter account just for future reference as well. And of course, we want everybody to have fun. Content especially and social is a lot of fun to talk about. It is very serious, of course, because it's such a crucial part of what we're talking about on a day-by-day basis. But we want to make sure that everybody is having fun with this, because this is where you get to flex those creative muscles a little bit and really just have a great conversation with your audience online. So, of course, today we're asking the question, is content still king? We wanted to just observe trends in content and social media, and we found some pretty good things to share with everybody today. So why focus on content? Really, at the end of the day, what is a website without content? Content is that necessary piece of interaction in an online environment. It's how people learn about what your website is all about. So that's why we have to focus on content. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to begin with a poll question, and we wanted to ask the audience, is content still king? We're going to go ahead and launch it here. So we would love to hear your feedback. Let us know what you think. Is content still king? So I'm seeing that the votes are starting to come through. Cruising on in. We're going to give it about 10, 15 more seconds. Thank you to everybody for voting. Okay, it seems like we are starting to plateau off a little bit, so get those last second votes in. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close it out and share the results. And as expected, and as is absolutely correct, is content still king? Yes, absolutely, content is still king. What we're going to be covering today is, just really covering on the fact that with a lot of the changes that are taking place in the world of Google, content is still one of those areas where you absolutely have to make sure that you are playing your part in it, because that's really what Google has to know about your website. So thinking about how search engines of the past have interacted with content, Christy, I'm sure you can definitely speak from experience just about how funny it was working with older search engines and how they interacted with content. I'm sure you have stories of your own, but one of mine, I remember one of the old search engines, all that you had to do was, all that you had to do to win in that search engine was essentially just have more page titles than your competitor. And that was how you ranked. And that is an absolutely horrible way of gauging, how high quality a website is. But, just some of the old tricks that we used to be able to pull. Zip codes. There were just so many things that we could implement within our websites that, just kind of tricked the search engine. And, Google also has, of course, different factors that, there's all the technical things that they look at, and then there's also all the backlink factors as well that really differentiated Google right from the beginning. But from the earliest days of search engine optimization, content has been that one consistent piece. It's the one thing that we've always had control over, that we're able to implement, that can sway how our website is going to perform. And that evolution is what what I really find interesting. Christy, I'd love to, just kind of hear from you your thoughts on how we've gone from that density perspective into the quality perspective.
Yes, well, so, back when, probably 10 years ago, less than 10 years ago, everyone was worried just about having keywords in everywhere possible, keyword stuffing, cloaking, like, putting the keywords in and hiding them, and, just so Google would pull the keywords. And then naturally, you have spammers take advantage of that, and then when you're searching Google, you don't find what you're looking for. There was a brief period of that. So, of course, they caught on to it quickly and started focusing more on quality, which makes them why they're so profitable and user-friendly.
Absolutely. And I often joke around that my favorite black hat SEO trick, now of course absolutely never use this, but just the fact that somebody actually was creative enough to think of this, I think plays exactly to what you're talking about here. The idea of having a black background with black text over it that was just loaded up with keywords.
Right.
Obviously you would never ever consider doing that and trying to trick Google that way, but the fact that somebody actually said, I think I can do this, and the fact that it actually worked for a little while was what I find to be the most fascinating overall. So what we wanted to cover to get started with was writing SEO ready content. We're going to be touching a lot on keyword density and how that has really evolved and what that really has morphed into. And that is, of course, referred to as LSI. And that is really something that a lot of folks don't take advantage of. And we want to share some tips and tricks about how to get your content LSI friendly. So, looking at keywords within content, some of the old practices that really used to be in place were that you just wanted to really have a 3 to 5% keyword density, which over time on a page just really starts to look ridiculous. Christy, what have you seen as far as changes within the way that keyword density has changed as far as the rules?
Since, primarily what I usually promote is not even to worry about keyword density until after the fact, because you really want to just make sure the content is natural. And then if you see that you don't have enough keywords, you could add them in certain places, obviously still natural. But before, you would just see someone say something like, sneakers for sale at sneakerswebsite.com.
Right.
Cheapest sneakers ever.
yeah, all that fun stuff. And just, the thing to remember, what we concluded with yesterday was just looking at, the number one rule of SEO is common sense at the end of the day. Google is, of course, going to notice things like that. So, it absolutely makes sense that, over time, Google's going to start to notice when keywords are just repeating over and over and over again. So looking at another thing within keywords as it's related to content is, of course, location. How do you feel, Christy, that location plays into the content that exists within a page?
I think it's very important. Google, we've always known that Google considers it important to have the main keywords of a page early on in that page. At this point it could really be anywhere, but traditionally we always make sure that it's in the first paragraph or two, or even sentence or two, because it also depends on the location in relation to words surrounding it, because as Google gets smarter, they know whether that specific keyword that we're focusing on is related to one type of industry or another type of industry.
Absolutely, yeah. And the way that I like to relate it when you're writing your page titles and all that, of course, you want to make sure that you're putting the keyword that you want to target right up front, just because, as Google's reading your content, you're really signaling to them that, hey, this is pretty important. I believe that the same rule applies to the content itself. If it's one of the first things you're talking about, it's probably pretty important to your business.
Definitely.
So we've touched on keyword density and, just really thinking about, how does density relate to relevance? And there's unfortunately a lot of instances where the two are unrelated to each other to a certain degree. You know what I mean? So like just because something mentions something over and over again doesn't mean that it is physically the best content. So the first question that we wanted to pose was, and we're not doing a poll here or anything, we just wanted to, kind of get a general reflection out of everybody. But is there a perfect density for keyword rankings now? What do you think, Christy?
I honestly don't focus too much on keyword density, but if I do see that the keyword it only appears once in a long amount of content, I will recommend or suggest adding it maybe 2 or 3 more times, maybe even 4 or 5, and then we could always look at competition, see what competition is doing. But I really try not to focus on it as long as there's related information or related keywords.
Sure.
Because, like I said, Google's getting smarter. You don't even necessarily need, you do need the specific keyword, but they're picking up on other related words and terms as well.
Right, and I think that's a great point that you're bringing up here, and it's kind of the perfect movement into what's referred to as LSI, which is of course short for latent semantic indexing. And the entire concept behind LSI is that it's not just about lumping keywords into your content. It's about making those relations between words on the page and the end user experience. So why we want to make sure that we're using LSI is because Google is essentially moving away from that keyword-centered experience. And the reason that Google is because users are moving away from that keyword-centered experience. You think about on your mobile phone, like I'm like 88 years old. But anyway, you think about the experience that you have on your phone and the way that you interact with your phone when you're doing a search versus how you interact with a computer, and the fact that we genuinely do more searches on our phones now. We typically have longer queries on our phone, so we have to keep that in mind. And to a certain degree, there is no preparing your website for those long terms. You know what I mean? Like you can't predict somebody's going to have some kind of eight word phrase that they're punching into Google. So LSI, what that allows us to do is it really helps us expand the overall experience, and it helps us essentially be there when somebody is searching for something in our industry rather than in our keyword house. So for those that are on the East Coast that have wrapped up lunch, and for everybody getting ready for lunch, you're welcome for this picture. So what we wanted to do, what I love to do as an exercise, is just something that you can do to practice LSI and how to have an effective piece of content on your website as you're getting ready to write new content for your website. Think about chocolate cake. Not too hard for myself to do, but think about chocolate cake, and think about if you were writing a piece of content around chocolate cake. So in the old days of SEO, a few years back, what you would do is you would just have chocolate cake repeated over and over again within your content. Just include it, 2 to 3 times per paragraph, and then, hey, now we have a nice optimized piece. But if we think of it from the perspective, post rank brain, post knowledge graph, post all of these individual things, if we think about how can we be a part of that conversation rather than being a part of that search query trail, What else can we talk about? You know, me as a chocolate cake enthusiast, I'm thinking about, you know, okay, I want to talk about cocoa. I want to talk about flour. I want to talk about eggs and icing.
And desserts.
Yeah, we can talk about desserts. We can talk about weddings.
Right.
We can, you know, there's so many things that we can talk about in the world of chocolate cake that puts just a genuinely better narrative together. And you think about, at the end of the day, when the end user gets to your website and they see this piece of content that is just mentioning chocolate cake over and over again, how good of an experience do you think the end user thinks that is? Right. Now think about Google. When Google gets to your website and they think about this content and, you know, comparing one to the other, which one do you think they're going to give better credence to? My guess is option number 2, where you're talking about all things chocolate cake rather than just the phrase chocolate cake over and over again.
And there was also a real focus, there was an over-focus on keywords for a while, that to the point where you wouldn't even be able to structure your content to make sense because you had to include a specific keyword over and over. So it's actually a benefit that Google is implementing RankBrain and all these, you know, advanced artificial intelligence.
Absolutely, absolutely. So leveraging LSI really gives you that competitive edge that we're talking about. It really helps you be there as part of that the competition overall. And I really do believe that, you know, over time, this is the direction that Google's going to be moving, especially with RankBrain just being a part of the algorithm. And we're going to be getting to RankBrain in just a couple minutes here. So as you are getting your content together and getting, you know, different things in place, we wanted to share with everybody what we call the nose of content writing for your website. So first is know thy audience. So key element, and I'm going to look over at the content writer that I have in the room with me at the end of the table. She's giving me a dirty look at the moment because I mentioned that she's in the room. But the first rule of writing content for SEO purposes is, of course, to be human. Write for your audience and not for the search engines. I think that is something that gets away from a lot of people anymore. You know, I'm sure Christy has a handful of horror stories that she could share. Isma, our content writer that I happen to have in here with us, she could also share some things that she has seen over the years as far as, you know, SEO written content rather than content written for a human. So that is the absolute most important thing to remember when writing your content, is to keep your audience in mind. Next is to know your plan. So marketing just kind of is a pipe dream if you're not putting a plan in place to make sure that you are achieving your goals. It's a lot easier if we think about writing something good from the ground up rather than you know, just kind of throwing stuff at a wall and then just kind of patching it up later. Christy, what would be some pieces of advice that you'd have as far as creating a content plan?
So when creating a content plan, what you really, again, of course you want to think about what the audience wants, what they would be interested in, what's going to make them feel engaged. I think questions and stuff really tend to, or answering questions in that your potential consumer or potential audience might have, you know, thinking about it in that respect is it helps rank. And the thing is also that you want to really think about something that maybe hasn't been done before, because then you're more likely to come up in search.
Right.
If it's content that Google's crawlers maybe haven't seen before, or you know, or something.
That's an absolutely great point. And you know, just from an end user perspective too, if I'm searching for pizza shops in
Right.
Princeton or something like that, and okay, 5 showed up, they all say the same thing, but then hey, there's this one guy that's just talking about how good their ingredients are, and whatever else, whatever it is that they're talking about. I think that's definitely a key thing, and I think Google kind of is starting to notice those kind of things at the end of the day.
Definitely.
So the next point is know the rules of Google. Google, of course, has many things in place that are designed to discourage low-quality content, and they thoroughly encourage really high-quality content. So it's absolutely crucial to make sure that you are creating awesome content within your website that is going to not only drive great users, but also great traction from the crawlers as well. So what we wanted to start to talk about was Google's content-centered updates. The first of which, probably the most famous, is going to be Google Panda. Google Panda initially went after websites that produced thin content or low-quality content, content that existed that was just kind of unnecessarily bloated as well. We're going to share a pretty funny example in just a few moments here, but also duplicated content was a major part of this as well. So more recently, Google added Panda to the core algorithm. Christy, do you want to share what we think the implications of this will mean in the long run?
So it really just solidifies Google's dedication, or for lack of a better word, of using content as a significant factor. It really, as they said, Panda before was experimental. It worked. The results were good, and they therefore put it into the core algorithm. So any impacts of Panda before are going to continue to happen, and it's going to run with their regular search engine re-indexing every day.
Definitely. And what we've provided here is a kind of an example of what we're talking about. So what I would like to give everybody about 20 seconds to do, just sit back and think about what is the process of pouring a glass of milk. And it sounds silly. I've got a couple chuckles in the room here with me. But what is the process of pouring a glass of milk? So I'll give everybody about 10 seconds just to really think this one through. Okay, I hope everyone has their thoughts in mind as far as what goes into pouring a glass of milk. I've asked this question before in some of the teachings that I've done, and I think the shortest answer I've ever gotten was about 7 words. So get a glass and pour the milk. You know what I mean? Like that was the shortest answer I've ever gotten. This piece of content here is about 750 words, all about pouring a glass of milk. And this is a prime example of content for the sake of content. You really don't have to go too deep to really just kind of stuff words in there because you think Google is going to be looking at pieces of content that just kind of have more to them. So it's really important to make sure that the words that you're writing are of higher quality. This just for a few giggles, this contains some of my favorite content of all time, including this as a tip. Make sure that the container of milk you are pouring has been refrigerated. If the container of milk has been left out all night because somebody forgot to put it away, the milk will smell very bad and be all chunky. That's not pouring milk. That's poor milk. And you can kind of get a sense as to what's going on with this piece of content as well and what they were trying to target, where they are just stuffing the term milk in there over and over and over again. And this is really just a great example of what Google Panda was all about and what they were trying to knock down and discourage from happening. So I hope everyone got a good chuckle out of this.
From what I remember, this was actually ranked well on Google before Panda.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, and that's exactly why. That's one of the famous stories that Google knocked this piece down because, and Panda was the absolute main culprit out of this. So next, what we wanted to talk about, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about RankBrain and what that's going to mean for the world of marketing in the future. RankBrain was essentially Google's introduction into AI. We covered this earlier in the week, but we really felt that it was important to mention again today. And the reason why it was important to mention again today is the last bullet point that we have here. Google is really trying to connect the world's information together. And what other way can they do this other than content? Mm-hmm. We think about a few years back, they released the knowledge graph, and they were able to start tying things together there. And then RankBrain really kicked it up a notch. Christy, I know that you had done an extensive bit of research for that day. Do you care to share anything else with RankBrain?
Yeah, the big thing about RankBrain is that Google is attempting to answer, there's 20%, I think 15, it might be 15 now, but 20% of search queries it gets a day have never been asked before. So, like they had to ask themselves the question, how do we answer queries that we've never seen before? And so what RankBrain does is it really makes connections between words and their relationships, and they actually have an extensive amount of information online on how they do this. It's very interesting. But the important thing also to keep in mind is when Google does this, what they're actually doing is analyzing historical searches. So after that, I believe that humans check and see if the relationships are correct, and then they put that update of RankBrain live. So it's constantly updating, always. And it's just going to keep getting smarter.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, the one thing that that you had discovered in the research as well that I found to be great was RankBrain has already outsmarted the people that built it.
Yep.
Which is just, it's only been, 5 months that RankBrain's been live, and it's already begun to outsmart the folks that put it together.
Probably up to 90% by now, or 100%.
Right. Okay, so some quick rules for content success. So jot this down, please, and utilize it as you're writing content for your website. So first and foremost, do not write content for the sake of having content. So, don't be that site that is publishing an article about how to pour milk.
Right.
Be the site of quality over quantity. Make sure that what you're writing, kind of mean every word that you say. And then the final point here is keep keywords in mind, because you need that guiding principle of what you want to, what conversations you want to be a part of. Not necessarily that you want to rank for or anything like that, but just what conversations you want to be a part of. And I think that that's really the crucial thing to keep in mind is how can we be a part of this greater conversation within our industry rather than how can we rank for this specific keyword. So utilizing content and social media, so tying kind of all these things together. So where you want to begin is within your blog. Rule number one, and I can't believe that I still have to say this in 2016, get your blog online. You absolutely need to have a blog. This is no longer a world of, this is no longer a thing in this world where it is a nice to have. This is absolutely a must have. You absolutely must be the place for information. Now, the question that we get on a fairly regular basis is, well, what is better practice? Is it blog.mysite.com or is it mysite.com/blog? Christy, what have you seen as far as performance between those two?
Well, this is actually highly debated. Even still, Google has said that it doesn't make a difference if it's, blog.example.com or example.com/blog. But I'm inclined, if you don't already have the blog, I'm inclined to say to keep it example.com/blog. That's just my opinion from experience and from what I've read and different studies. But I don't think that you're going to be harmed at all from having it the other way.
Absolutely. So, and I think that's a great point too. It is highly debated, of course. But I tend to lean the same way that if you essentially have /blog, you're kind of creating a directory type of experience or closer to a page where blog.mysite.com kind of creates the impression that, hey, this website is completely different. You know what I mean? This section of the site is completely different. So that's definitely one thing to keep in mind.
It's more of a subdomain.
Exactly.
Well, it is.
And just a quick note here, as we're continuing on through this content here, please make sure we've seen several great questions come across already. So we just want to encourage everybody to keep them coming. We're going to, of course, have some time chiseled out at the end to make sure that we are covering all these great questions. So what we wanted to do real quick is we just wanted to have our final poll question for the day. So if everyone could please make sure that you are answering this and being a part of the conversation. How often are you updating your blog? The various answers from don't have one to daily. So both ends of the spectrum. I can see that we are cruising right along here. So thank you to everybody for voting. And we're going to give it probably about 5 to 7 more seconds. Looks like we're plateauing as far as folks answering. A couple more just came in. Thank you, everybody. Okay, last call. All right. Oop, got a couple last-minute ones in there. Okay, and we're going to share the results here. So we are actually tied between folks that don't have a blog and those that are publishing weekly. A handful are publishing on a daily basis, which is definitely impressive. So good for you guys. That is absolutely awesome. And then there's also the folks that kind of do it when they get to it or monthly. They kind of think about it and get the post up and running. So I'm happy to see that, of course, there are more that are posting to their blogs. However, I would love to see those that are saying that they don't have a blog. I would definitely encourage all of you to please make sure that you are setting this up on high priority for reasons that we're going to be covering over the next few slides. So once again, thank you everybody for participating in that. So our general rule of thumb is to publish to your blog frequently, and really where you want to begin with getting your blog up and running is establishing a brand tone. We have kind of a brand tone that we like to utilize within our organization here as we're writing. Actually, we kind of have two. The first is fanatically analytical, which I mentioned in the beginning. But we also like to think of ourselves as geeky cool. So kind of laid back tone, but also not afraid to dive into the details and really be geeky with what we're talking about. And that works for us. If you have a site where you're talking about car parts, let's say, that tone is obviously much different. You want to let your audience know that, hey, we're in there with you. We're getting our hands dirty. We're busting our knuckles on car parts as, you know, as our wrenches slip and everything like that. You want to know, your audience wants to know that you're in there with them. So establishing that brand tone is absolutely important. And
helps establish trust as well.
Exactly. And you know, and on even more important than just establishing that tone is making sure that you are you know, publishing to your content you know, at least once per week, you know, preferably a little bit more. Christy, do you mind sharing some things? So you have your blog posts going out. What are some ways that we can really maximize that content as we're publishing it?
I mean, you know, of course you could just constantly, you want to know what your audience is searching for. So we could use tools like Google Trends and whatnot to have ideas of what to post about.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, posting it on social media. And getting your audience or potential audience engaged. And in regards to how often you publish, I know that it's, you know, it's sometimes difficult, depending on your resources, to have content, to be able to write content all of the time, or even once a week for some people, twice a week. So what I like usually recommend to do, you can, before you even have your blog up, write the content or have it written, and then just schedule it to be posted like once a week or something. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a good approach to take.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And then looking, you know, kind of the one question that we get periodically. Well, what if I'm working with a boring industry? You know, I have nothing to write about. It's about, at that point, start having conversations. Look to your customers for stories. If you think about the company DollarShaveClub.com, you know what I mean? Like they have their own brand tone that is just genuinely kind of funny, the way that they go about it. But if you look at, but at the end of the day, they're selling razors. You know what I mean? They're like, it's an industry that really hasn't changed too much fundamentally in a number of years, and they still have hilarious blog content. They're talking about, you know, different things that are taking place, you know, in the bathroom as you're getting ready for the day.
It's all about making connections.
Exactly. So what you can do is you look to your customers for stories. So things that are taking place that, you know, if your audience is having a struggle with something, look to that and try to find answers for that. And then think of stereotypes within your industry. Those are always funny to tackle as well, because just having that kind of, you know, against the grain tone can definitely be useful as well in the long run. Can you think of anything else, Christy, if something's boring?
There's a rental company in Manhattan. I don't know if they do this in Philly as well, that they have the most provocative, thought-provoking brand like billboards, and I'm sure their blog content is like this as well. It has nothing to do really, well, sometimes it does, with renting, not renting, storage space. But they the way that they make a connection between a really controversial or you know, interesting topic, and they relate it back to storage space. It's that just always makes me think that there's always a connection that could be made.
Definitely fascinating. Yep. Just and that's just really the work of great marketing at that point, which is definitely what it's about at the end of the day. So looking at content marketing and thinking beyond our blog, we are big fans, in case you didn't know, you know, with a week-long webinar focused around SEO specifically, but also white papers, PDFs, you know, cheat sheets, guidelines, different things along those lines. Infographics are definitely huge. That is a great way of getting your information out there and sharing that, making things that are genuinely useful for your audience are exactly what get you that traction and can help you grow your business. It also establishes you as the authority on a specific topic. So, some of the things that you can do, and some of the things that just naturally create great traction. Again, we mentioned white papers, infographics, webinars and cheat sheets, different things like that. But also utilizing ebooks, for instance. Those are definitely great. And if you have the capacity to develop tools for your industry as well, those tend to grab a lot of great traction. So just at the end of the day, it's about creating a great experience for your end user, and Google, I do believe, recognizes this. Then on the other side, think about your industry, and if you're in a space kind of like ours, where there's things that are constantly changing in the world that you live in. There's got to be a place for the news to be visible, and it really may as well be your website. You know what I mean? So it kind of be a place where people go to find more information about things that are happening within your space. So again, SEO is a key example of that, where things are just constantly changing. So why not be that news? And it's a very similar approach to what we take. So as you're publishing all this great content, the other thing to keep in mind is that you want to make sure that you're encouraging sharing within social media. Shared content essentially means effective content. One study done by Searchmetrics indicates that one of the biggest signals that has grown year over year are social signals. By a pretty large margin. Pinterest, for instance, this may not be relevant for every industry. However, it's absolutely crucial that if it applies to your business, to be a part of Pinterest, because the weight of a pin as a signal has grown so significantly over the past year. What have you seen, Christy, in the world of social sharing as well?
Yeah, so I think what happened is Google trusts social signals. Well, and I mean, specifically for mobile, they're starting to trust social signals a little bit even more than backlinks. I mean, obviously, we don't know that for a fact, but this is what some studies are showing, that if there's users that they're sharing things on Facebook, and you see something that was shared a few hundred or a few thousand times, it's more likely that that's real. That's a more genuine type of way, that it's more likely that that's real than someone who might have had 1,000 spammy backlinks.
Absolutely.
So and then they can obviously know whether they're real, whether the Facebook users are real or whatnot. So I think that's why Google is going in that direction, and a lot of studies have reported that that's what they're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So kind of starting to round things up a little bit and looking at some quick rules for content marketing. Consistency is key. This is one of the key things that you want to make sure that you are utilizing within within the world of content marketing. You don't want to be that brand that is hot, then cold, then hot again, then cold again, where you publish 5 days in a row and then all of a sudden you don't post again for another month. That is more damaging than not having a blog at all, or not having the social channels at all, is kind of being there and then not being there suddenly. So you definitely want to make sure that you are consistent, and also building that unique brand tone is definitely the another key to making sure that you're successful over there. And then also making sure that everything is shareable for the reasons that Christy just shared. It is absolutely important to make sure that your content is out there and that other people can get to sharing it.
It's very frustrating, and this has happened to me a few times. If I see a great article, I read a great article, and there's no little widget or whatever for me to share it on Facebook or through email. It's frustrating, but at this point, it's a lot of work to copy and paste the link.
Sure.
And send it in an email. So just something to keep in mind.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a great point. Make it easy for the end user. We've been talking about user experience for a good chunk of this week, and that just adds on to why that's even more important. Okay, so when we're talking about social media as well, we want to talk about making sure that your posts can be as impactful as possible. The key is making sure that, with it, now that you've established your individual brand tone, now we can think about what are the things that we can cover within our posts. So thinking about different themes, we're talking about we're talking about things like, highlighting a team member. We're talking about things like hosting a contest, different things like that. And then what you want to do is you want to test and see what gets the most action out of our audience. Posting on social media and on our blog is not going to be about, we got new this in, we got new that in, you should buy this, you should buy that. It's not about that, and you're not going to be successful if you have 100% just pushed content that is just purely about selling a product. You want to make sure that you are, doing fun things with your team or different contests, different things along those lines. And the way that you can gauge success is by utilizing some basic baseline metrics like a clout score. I am personally a big fan of keeping track of your clout score, and then you can also utilize kind of the basics of Facebook likes, Facebook followers. You could dive in really deep and measure the engagement numbers that you can now get from these individual networks and see how things are changing as you try different things. So seeing, how many times something is shared, how many times an individual post is liked. Those are going to help you be key indicators of how you can modify your approach. So what we've developed here, you can feel free to screenshot this, but this is also going to be our giveaway for today as well. What we've done is we've created kind of a quick test post type of strategy. And what we're highlighting is just some ideas of some different things that you can try. Some examples include utilizing some trending hashtags. Today's example is around one of my favorite groups, One Direction, of course. There is the trending hashtag 1 year without Zayn, so if you felt it warranted credit to your brand to be a part of a conversation like that, find the hashtags that are going on in your space and be a part of those conversations. The worst that's going to happen is you don't get retweeted, at which point, you just move on to the next thing. So ask questions, announce contests, and just get those conversations going. And we developed this to help you keep track of your individual scores and just keep a track of the likes and followers that you're getting. So this is meant to be kind of a starting point. And thank you for letting me know that you are judging me in hashtag One Direction. So if you're interested in getting a hold of the social media impact test chart, just go ahead and shoot us an email at SEO@NedElixir.com. Just include a subject line that lets us know that this is what you're interested in, and we will go ahead and get that over to you and continue that conversation as we go. So once again, SEO@NedElixir.com. Just use subject line, social media impact test chart, and that will be enough for us to let us know that this is what you are specifically interested in. So as we round it out, we have a few minutes left for the day and a few questions that have trickled in. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting to these. Keep them coming, of course. If any other questions come up, that we can't get to, we will go ahead and get them covered on our blog over the next week. Christy, I'll let you take this one. Should I put dates on my blog? I think that's a good question. There's still a lot that don't utilize that.
Right. I mean, generally, I would say if you're not going to update your blog, maybe you shouldn't. But I think for Google's purposes, you should, and you should be genuine. You want to. If I find an article or something, and I want to know, especially in SEO, like if I'm looking for something about SEO, I have to know the date. Otherwise, I won't know if it's still relevant anymore.
Makes sense.
So it depends on the industry.
Yeah. Plus, there's also the setting that you can do in Google that kind of sorts your results by timeliness.
Right.
So if you're going to make your site easy for Google to get through, having this function is going to make that relevance piece even better.
Right.
All right. So the next question here: should I use WordPress or should I use Blogger? What would be the better option? So I personally, being a developer and having that little bit of a background, I do tend to lean a little bit towards WordPress. Reason being, Google really finds getting through that framework to be pretty easy. And, something ridiculous. I forget the exact number, but it's something like 35% of the web is powered by WordPress at this point, which is just really, I think, speaks volumes to the power of that as a platform.
It's also very user-friendly.
Absolutely, for sure. All right, looks like we might have time for about one more question, so thank you for sending all these across. Christy, I'll let you take this one as well. Can I reuse my old content?
Traditionally, obviously it's not good to copy old content. If you reuse it and repurpose it, it's kind of a different story. Obviously, you could revisit something that you've posted before and say, well, this is what has changed since then, or this is any improvements that have been made in this area, or something like that. There are ways to repurpose it, but reusing it, I would try to stay away from it for duplicate content issues.
Yeah. So what do you think of resharing it as opposed to, you know what I mean?
Like on social media?
Yeah.
I think resharing it is fine. I mean, it's, if you are, you're not saying that you just published it and you just say, check out our old content piece on this or a blog post on this that is relevant today. I think that's personally fine.
Definitely. Well, that actually concludes SEO Week. So there will now be a void in my heart for the remainder of the year until we do this again next year. But in all seriousness, we tried to have fun throughout this. Throughout the course of this week. We want to sincerely thank everybody who has made their way out to SEO Week each day, or even if you just only attended one day, we thank you as well. We've had a great time. We've gotten a lot of great questions, so we will definitely be sharing the answers as we go. But thank you to everybody for taking so much time out of your week and joining us to learn more about SEO. We hope you found all of this information informative, and if you missed a day or you just want to relive the excitement, all of that content that we've covered over the past is up and running at our blog. It is nedelixir.com/blog, and those posts will be there. We're also going to shoot an email out to everybody once we get all of these great questions answered. And thank you once again for joining us. And on behalf of myself and Christy and the rest of the team at Ned Elixir University that made this happen, thank you all for joining us, and thank you to my team for helping us put all of this together. And we will be seeing everybody again soon. I'm sure we'll have an SEO webinar in the next coming months. But if you're only here for SEO Week, we will see you next year, and we hope that everybody has a safe and healthy holiday weekend. Until next time, take care.